Think of your most vivid, cherished childhood memory. Maybe it's the smell of pine needles at Christmas when you were 6. Maybe it's the exact shade of blue on the bicycle you got for your birthday. You can see it, right? It's like a movie file stored on a hard drive in the back of your skull. Now here is the terrifying truth that neuroscientists have spent the last 20 years proving. That memory? It's a lie. Not a total fabrication, maybe, but it's a forgery, a sketch of a sketch. And the more you love that memory, the more you think about it, the more fake it actually becomes. Every time you remember your past, you are unintentionally destroying it. You aren't a librarian looking at an old book. You're an editor with a red pen, and you've been rewriting your own autobiography since the day you were born. Welcome to the memory rewrite paradox. For nearly a century, we thought memory worked like a video recorder. Input goes in, it's encoded into the brain, and it sits there in a cold, stable state called consolidation. We believed that once a memory was set, it was like a photograph in an album. You could take it out, look at it, and put it back exactly as it was. But in the early 2000s, everything changed. Researchers discovered a process called reconsolidation, and it turned our understanding of the human identity upside down. Think of your brain not as a hard drive, but as a Wikipedia page. In the old model of science, we thought that when you recalled a memory, you were just hitting read. But the biological reality is much more chaotic. When you pull a memory into your conscious mind, the edit button is automatically clicked. The moment a memory becomes active, it becomes chemically unstable. The proteins that hold the memory together literally start to dissolve. For a brief window of time, usually a few hours, that memory is soft. It's like wet cement. And in that window, anything, and I mean anything, can change it. Your current mood, a comment from a friend, the song playing on the radio, or even just the way you wish the event had happened. Then your brain has to resave the file. It's called protein synthesis. Your brain weaves the memory back into the neurons, but it doesn't save the original version. It saves the edited version. The original is gone. Forever. Overwritten by the update. This means the memories you think about the most, your core memories, are actually the ones you have edited the most often. The things you haven't thought about in 20 years? Those might actually be more accurate, simply because you haven't had the chance to ruin them yet. If you think you're the exception, you need to meet Dr. Elizabeth Loftus. She is arguably the most influential psychologist in the field of human memory, and she has spent decades proving that your eyewitness certainty is a biological illusion. In one of her most famous experiments, she showed people a film of a car accident. Afterwards, she asked them a simple question. To one group, she asked, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? To the other, she asked, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? It's just one word, a tiny linguistic nudge, but the results were staggering. The people who heard the word smashed remembered the cars going significantly faster. But here's the kicker. A week later, when asked if there was any broken glass at the scene, the smashed group were twice as likely to say yes. There was no broken glass in the video, none. But because their brains had reconsolidated the memory with the new, violent context of the word smashed, their neurons literally grew new connections to include the glass. Their brains didn't just misremember the event, they fabricated physical evidence to make the story make sense. And they would have sworn on their lives in a court of law that they saw it. This leads us to a phenomenon called flashbulb memories. These are the big ones. Where were you when the Twin Towers fell? Where were you when you heard about the 2020 lockdowns? These memories feel different. They feel electric, etched in stone because of the adrenaline. In 1986, the morning after the Challenger space shuttle disaster, a psychologist named Ulrich Neisser had his students write down exactly where they were and what they were doing when they heard the news. 3 years later, he asked them again. Over 25% of the students gave accounts that were wildly different from what they had written the morning after. Some remembered being in a dorm when they were actually in a cafeteria. Some remembered being with people who weren't even there. But here's the haunting part. When Neisser showed them their own original handwritten notes from 3 years prior, the students didn't say, "Oh, I guess I was wrong." They looked at their own handwriting and said, "I know that's my handwriting, but that's not what happened." Their updated memory felt more real than the physical evidence of their own past. Why would nature do this to us? Why would evolution design a brain that gaslights itself? Why give us a memory system that values a good story over the cold, hard truth? The answer is as brilliant as it is disturbing. You see, evolution doesn't care about your nostalgia. It doesn't care about your truth. It only cares about one thing, your survival. And to survive, you don't need a video archive. You need a simulator. You need to be able to take the past and tweak it so you can predict the future. If a tiger attacked you by a river, your brain doesn't just need to remember that specific tiger. It needs to be able to generalize that fear, to update the river memory with danger, so that every time you see water, you're ready. But this updating feature has a dark side. It means that we are all walking around living in a subjective reality. Your identity is built on a foundation of shifting sand. But if we can't trust our memories, what can we trust? And more importantly, if we can edit our memories, does that mean we can intentionally delete our traumas? Or could someone else, a government, an advertiser, or a partner, edit your past without you ever knowing? The science of what happens next is even more unbelievable. Because once we realized the save button was actually a rewrite button, we started looking for the delete key. And we found it. For a long time, the idea of erasing a memory was relegated to science fiction movies. But in a small laboratory at McGill University, researchers started doing the impossible. They were looking for a blood pressure medication called propranolol. Remember how we said a memory becomes wet cement for a few hours when you recall it? Scientists realized that if they could block the brain from producing the proteins needed to re-save the memory during that window, the memory might just dissolve. They tested this on people with severe PTSD, individuals haunted by a single, horrific moment that played on a loop in their minds. They gave the patients propranolol, then asked them to describe their trauma in vivid detail. They forced the brain to open the file. But the drug blocked the physical stress response. It kept the heart rate low and the adrenaline down while the memory was in its unstable state. The result? The patients didn't forget the event. They still knew it happened, but the emotional charge was gone. The horror file was saved as a boring file. The brain essentially edited out the pain. We are literally learning how to hack the biological code of our own suffering. But this power has a terrifying mirror image. If we can dampen memories, can we also create them? Enter the lost in the mall technique. Dr. Elizabeth Loftus performed a study that should honestly keep you up at night. She contacted the families of her participants and got 3 true stories from their childhood. Then she added a 4th story, a complete lie. She told the participants that when they were 5, they got lost in a shopping mall, were terrified, cried, and were eventually rescued by an elderly person in a flannel shirt. The first time she told them, they didn't remember it. But remember the edit button? By talking about it, she forced their brains to search for the file. Since the file didn't exist, the brain started building one using stock footage of malls and old people. By the 3rd interview, 25% of the participants didn't just remember getting lost. They started adding their own details. They remembered the smell of the mall's food court. They remembered the exact color of the flannel shirt. They had successfully reconsolidated a total lie into their actual identity. They would have walked into a court of law and testified to a history that never happened. This isn't just a lab quirk, this is how cults work. This is how toxic relationships gaslight you. If someone you trust tells you a version of your past often enough, your brain will eventually click save on their version and delete your own. You see, we like to think of ourselves as the protagonist of a movie, but biologically, you are more like a Wikipedia entry that anyone with an edit password can change, including you. Evolution chose flexibility over accuracy. It decided it was better for you to be mostly right about the present than perfectly right about the past. We are survival machines, not historians. This leads us to a haunting philosophical question. If your memories are a series of forgeries, and your self is built entirely out of those memories, then who are you, really? If you woke up tomorrow with a different set of edited memories, you would be a different person. You are essentially a ghost haunting a biological machine that is constantly rewriting your origin story. Your childhood isn't a place you've been. It's a story you're currently telling yourself. So the next time you're in a heated argument with a family member about what really happened 10 years ago, remember this: neither of you is right. You are both holding updated files of an original document that was shredded a long time ago. Your brain isn't trying to tell you the truth. It's trying to help you survive the next 10 minutes. And if the truth gets in the way of a good survival strategy, your brain will hit delete without a second thought. So look at your old photos. Hold on to those physical objects. Because inside your skull, the ink is never dry. You are a masterpiece in progress, being painted over layer by layer until the original canvas is gone forever. The question is, if you could choose to delete your worst memory today knowing it would change who you are tomorrow, would you? Or is the lie of who we were the only thing making us who we are? If your memories can be rewritten, your decisions probably can too. And that's exactly what we'll uncover in the next videos. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy science that changes how you see yourself.